You said Cards Against Humanity. Do you guys have a favorite Cards Against Humanity card?
Ooh.
Listen, when my kids started reading, I had to get rid of Cards Against Humanity.
I haven't played that game in a very long time, so I don't.
In
the heyday, I would have had one.
The first time. Okay, I don't know if it's still my favorite card, but the first time I ever played it, and the first time someone played the being a mother trucking sorcerer was the funniest thing.
So I will say that Apples to Apples is obviously like the tame first version of that, and I will remember forever that the adjective that was put down was senseless, and someone played Helen Keller, and we lost it. We completely lost it.
So
I mean, how good is that?
Welcome to The Cover, where three Hoosier friends judge books by their covers and movies by their trailers.
That's right. I'm Brett, here with my fellow Indiana natives, Remington and Marcus, ready to dive into the stories that keep us up all night and occasionally put us to sleep.
Whether you're a bookworm, movie buff, or just here for the witty banter, we've got you covered. Each week, we'll dissect a different book or movie, sharing fun facts, hot takes, and moments that make Marcus cry. Spoiler alert, we're not experts, but we're definitely opinionated.
From literary masterpieces to blockbuster flops, nothing is safe from our snarky reviews and wild tangents. Who knew Hoosiers could be this entertaining?
So grab your popcorn and reading glasses, because we're about to embark on a hilarious journey through the pages and screens that shape our lives. Or at least our weekends. You're listening to The Cover. Let's get the show on the road before one of our kids wakes up.
I think that like books and movies and songs are a really good window into humanity. And so
From the window to the
to
wall.
the wall. Yeah, I was thinking.
I do. I think they're a great window into humanity.
Yeah.
And most of humanity doesn't live in this Christian bubble that I'm raising my kids in. And so I'm able to take secular songs and have conversations about humanity. And I think it's really healthy.
You know who was in a Christian bubble this week? Me.
Oh.
That's my what's new, because I ordered Panera for my staff at work. And
Is that the food of choice?
So my key lead assistant right now, her favorite, she's actually a member of the Panera of the Month Sip Club.
Oh, yeah.
You know what this is? You get free coffee, or well, I mean, you pay for it.
I've seen
subscription.
it. Yeah, it's like $10 a month or whatever. And
It's
you get
funny.
coffee.
I have access to her Google Calendar, so she'll have random stuff like Danny's in town. So I'll but she forgets. So I'll be like, "Hey, how's Danny?" And she's like, "What?" But anyway, so that's why we got Panera, and I get a text right away. Hey, you've subscribed to Panera alerts. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go back to work and I forget, and then I see a new text pop up, and you know how it's just like the preview.
Yeah.
All caps, good news, exclamation point, Jesus is coming. I'm just like, what is happening?
You don't even check it. You just say
Panera's gone anti-woke.
No, you just go, hey, did anyone else get a text from Jesus?
No, yeah, right. That's the first. And then the second thing is like, why am I still here?
Oh, man.
Why are my clothes
that'd be terrible.
Why are my clothes not in a pile?
The path is narrow. So anyway, now disappointing.
Many will say to me, Lord, Lord, didn't I prophesy in your name?
I did not foresee Jesus being a contactless drop-off, but freaking left it at the door instead of handing it to me.
Come
which
on,
I
Jesus.
Did not. I know.
Wow.
Step your game
Jesus.
up. Yeah, come on.
Get with the program.
Get with the program, okay? Welcome to the Cover Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brett Wiggins. As always, to my left is
Marcus Mangus.
what's on the menu for today with Marcus? Is I think you got a Coke, Diet Coke. What do we?
Oh no, it's the Java House cold brew. I don't know what we call these.
Pretty cool. Not a K
Brew
cup
cups.
because it's
Brew
ready,
cups. Yeah,
it's ready to go.
You just peel and pour into water.
Let me tell you something. If
Pretty
you do
sweet.
too many ounces of milk, it just
Tastes like milk.
tastes like milk.
Coffee milk. Yeah. I
is
think
crazy.
I got the levels right though.
It is crazy the minor amount of milk that's needed to totally transform it into
Yeah, pretty neat story though. I just met with the guy that is basically responsible for selling these all over the world, right? And he was telling me about them. They brew it all, so they take care of all the brewing and everything. And it takes an enormous amount of coffee grounds to do cold brew. So then they resell those used coffee grounds to like animal places, and they make it into bedding. So it's like reused.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Versus, like, what do you do with your coffee grounds when you're done with them, Brett?
I eat them.
I didn't see that coming, did you, Marcus?
Nope. He reuses them too. Got it. Got it.
Oh, it's great.
No, you throw them away, right?
Yep.
You know, and so the cups themselves are recyclable. They're reusing that. It's kind of like an environmental story as well, and it's delicious. Pretty impressed.
There's a word, the Cards Against Humanity card somewhere in that story. Something profit. I asked because Marcus on the last episode made. I'm not joking. I hate anything sweet added to bourbon. I hate Manhattans.
Still talking about this.
Holy cow! That Manhattan you made.
That was good.
Amazing.
Gentleman's Manhattan.
To my right, sir.
Remington Ramsey.
He's here. What are we covering on this episode, Ram?
Before we look up what the back cover is, you said Cards Against Humanity. Do you guys have a favorite Cards Against Humanity card?
Ooh. Listen, when my kids started reading, I had to get rid of Cards Against Humanity.
I haven't played that game in a very long time. So I don't.
In
the heyday, I would have had one.
The first time. Okay, I don't know if it's still my favorite card, but the first time I ever played it, and the first time someone played the being a mother trucking sorcerer was the funniest thing. Like
so I will say that Apples to Apples is obviously like the tame first version of that, and I will remember forever that the adjective that was put down was senseless, and someone played Helen Keller, and we lost it. We completely lost it.
That's so
I mean,
good.
how good is that?
So shout out to one of the friends of the show from Seattle, Washington, Dan, in that same realm of games, the creator of That's What She Said game, one of my buddies from high school. So he was meeting with a guy, Dan's big into games.
Did he have to get licensed?
So he's meeting with this dude who has this idea for this game called That's What She Said, but it was about women in history. It was a very like historical, and then all of a sudden Dan's like, dude, it's not going to work, whatever. And at the end of the conversation, he basically says, well, I basically own the rights to that phrase. And he's like, you what?
Yeah.
So then it's basically like, okay, I'm going to buy or partner with you for the phrase, and then creates the game. And yeah, pretty cool.
Nice. Can you imagine just be sitting down and somebody's like, yeah, I own that phrase. Let's do something with that.
Yeah.
Helen Keller, man. Helen Keller is my favorite follow on Twitter.
That's a Twitter handle.
It is the funniest account. Now, since then, because it's been so long.
How does she type? I don't understand.
With her hands. She does everything with her hands.
Oh, yeah. She just has it memorized.
One of her tweets was, what was that? Oh, man. All right. A Christmas Carol. Now, since A Christmas Carol is it's a very short novella, which I thought was like a Latin word for like tiny novel. Novella is like a old.
We'll have to ask our 6-year-old daughters about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they would know.
Because not Latin. Latino is what I meant. So
Spanish?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. A Christmas Carol, commonly known as A Christmas Carol, is a novella.
Wait a second. Repeat that again.
A Christmas Carol, but then I didn't want to read the rest,
oh, okay.
So I just skipped ahead.
We're off to a rousing start today.
Novella by Charles Dickens, first published in London by Chapman and Hall in 1843 and illustrated by John Leech. It recounts the story of Ebenezer Scrooge, an elderly miser who is visited by the ghost of his former business partner Jacob Marley and the spirits of Christmas past, present, and yet to come. In the process, Scrooge is transformed into a kinder, gentler man. But the back, this is Wikipedia's because the back there is no back cover to this book.
1843.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, Charles Dickens, man. He's a very talented writer.
Incredible.
What else for those of us or listeners of the podcast that aren't familiar?
Tale of Two Cities.
Oh, okay.
He's Great Expectations. right?
Oliver Twist.
Oliver Twist.
Oliver Twist.
I really like Oliver Twist. I've read Tale of Two Cities as well.
It's wild to me
Is
how.
that him? Is he Tale of Two Cities?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess maybe not wild, but it's really neat how old literature still is. The good stuff is still relative, like very important today. Like it still speaks.
Yeah,
to that.
I mean, if people aren't reading enough old books, you're missing out.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. There's no. What do people say? There's no new ideas for the most part.
That's true.
Yeah. What'd you know going into it, Remington?
At what point were there no new ideas, though? At
Well,
some
I
point,
mean, it's
at some point, there had to be new ideas.
It's hyperbole. But
But I'm just asking, like, at what point were they able to say there's no new ideas?
I mean, you could. I mean, there's a lot of stuff biblically that has been recycled into a new idea that's not actually a new idea. So, I mean, yeah, I would
Bible
say,
times, 6,000 years.
Yeah, when Jesus left the earth, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now no new ideas.
Have you guys ever heard the theory about the pyramids being built by
Yes.
giants?
Yes, and aliens, and
I've heard aliens, but at this
Nephilim.
giants was interesting to me. What?
The Nephilim.
Joe Rogan goes pretty deep into this. He's
On giants?
on the pyramids and how there's no way, based on the technology we think they had back then, they were
Not giants.
He's saying yes, it was giants. It was something besides a pulley system or on the backs of just normal slaves. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean it's pretty wild. Pretty wild.
I don't know why I thought of that. Probably because we were talking
I don't know
about
why I didn't think that was a random thought. I was like, oh, let's roll.
this is a podcast. Let's do it.
So is this your first time? I've never watched any of the movies. And I actually have never read any of the. There's many renditions of this. This is my first. I know the story. Angry Man.
How do you know the story if you haven't? Did you see a play?
No, it's just like I don't know.
It's just a part of culture.
Yeah,
at this
it's
point.
three.
Yeah, but
three
at some
ghosts.
point you have to digest the actual content.
I've never have. I just know Scrooge for
You've
sure.
never seen it. Never in school or anything.
Scrooge has been a character in.
Like,
Maybe I have seen it.
You've probably
seen the Mickey
seen the
Mouse
Mickey
version.
Mouse version.
Sure. Okay. Well,
Or Donald Duck.
yeah, something. I definitely am familiar with the story, but I don't think I've never like actually taken in and paid attention to beginning to end. And I'm really happy that I read it.
I've never read the book before, but I've seen multiple iterations of the movies.
There's 143 adaptations, I believe.
Almost over 200 years. I mean, that's
135 film and TV
way less
adaptations.
impressive.
And the one that's most famous is The Muppet Christmas Carol.
Oh, yeah.
I did watch a lot of Muppets growing up.
That's probably what it was.
Yeah, I did watch a lot of
Now,
Muppets.
if you're wanting to watch what I think is probably the best is the Jim Carrey.
Dude, the Jim Carrey animated one?
Yeah.
That's the one that I've always wanted to watch.
That's a very good one.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's really good. That's the one I think of when I think of like sitting down and watching with the kids.
I threw the 1984 version on yesterday while I was working just to kind of get a feel for it.
Yeah.
Lines up almost word for word.
Well, he
with the
writes
book.
it like that's what we said like back in the day. Some
because
of the
it's
movies,
such a short book. You can get away with
you can
that.
yeah. I
in a
mean, it's
movie.
the lines are word for word.
Yeah.
But like they used to write movie scripts as if it was a play.
Yeah.
And I think they still like had a little bit of that in the 40s and 50s.
This
Who
is the
plays
80s.
Who plays Scrooge in that?
I don't. It was
Is
a
no one
bunch of-
famous?
It was a bunch of British people from the 80s that I didn't really know or
Yeah.
recognize.
Any main characters we'd be familiar with? Any?
Yeah,
Scrooge.
Sorry,
Cratchit.
actors.
Tiny
actors.
Tim.
Any actors we'd be familiar with?
No, I mean, I'm not familiar with them, so I'd be surprised if you are.
That's true.
Yeah.
Very, very true. Do you remember the first time you saw, or was it the
I must
Mickey
have been
Mouse
in
version?
elementary
Was it-
school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think it was at
I
school?
actually think I might have seen this version in elementary school.
The 84 version you threw on?
Yeah.
To this day, the most impactful, cool, dynamic live arts performance I've ever seen was A Christmas Carol done in Indianapolis. We took a school field trip.
Oh, cool.
And they
Oh,
did
those
this
are the best days.
they did this thing with this massive frame. They had like a 12-foot frame, and to transition different scenes, they would bring the frame up and people would walk through it, and they'd have I can't describe it. It was just incredibly choreographed with this frame to have transitions of scenes. and the acting was phenomenal. And so to this day, like I want to see that version again. I don't even know how to ask.
Those are
Hey,
cool.
do they have
Those
the
are
frame?
cool days
You
in
know?
elementary school, the all-day field trip.
So new.
Yeah. Do you remember when we went and saw Phantom of the Opera a few years ago as a family?
Did I go to that?
Yeah, it was a Rawson situation.
Okay.
It was at Murat. Their stage
I
and
remember
how
when they
they
came.
transition
Mm-hmm.
is amazing.
Did they have water? They probably didn't.
I may or may
No,
not have
but-
On
followed.
Broadway, they did.
Yeah, I saw at Ford's Theater. I saw Tom Sawyer, and they had real water and boats and
No
stuff.
way.
It was bilingual too, and the
Yeah.
second language was sign language.
That's interesting.
It was phenomenal.
That's awesome.
I have sang,
That's actually
I have
probably-
sang in Ford's Theater.
You have
It's kinda-
sang in Ford's Theater,
Yeah.
as like for a choir.
Yeah.
That's an interesting.
Well,
The Ford's Theater is
remember when I
Detroit?
told you guys that World Leadership
DC.
Congress that I got to do?
Ford's Theater. Do you know who was shot in Ford's Theater?
Abraham Lincoln.
The way you asked that question.
Well, it just he got shot, so I
Yeah.
thought Detroit also a good option. But okay, good. Shout out D-Town. Just kidding. We're on
Was
the
it Tupac? He got shot.
Hey, listen, man. Diddy's going down for all of that.
Oh, gosh.
I don't pay attention to any of that stuff.
How can you
I just-
not see that? I mean, it's everywhere.
I just don't.
Trump and Diddy.
Clearly, I'm not. The algorithm knows that I don't care. Clearly,
Mm-hmm.
because I just don't see it.
Echo chambers.
It is interesting. I don't have any of my social media on my phone anymore. It's all only desktop version. But I had a viewpoint of what Instagram was, and I was like, "Oh, this is horrible." And then I got on Riley, my wife's Instagram, and
Yeah.
it was like, "Whoa, your experience is totally different
Yeah.
than my experience."
Is it good
It was
or
way
bad?
healthier, way better, way like.
Oh wow! So what does that say about you?
Dude, clearly, I mean, even if you don't click on something, if something catches your attention for
Yeah.
3 seconds, you don't scroll.
And it's just
Yeah.
negativity.
It's tracking.
Yeah.
More of like politics, more of that kind of stuff. Really like clips of people with like conspiracy theories, stuff like that. Like I'm clearly like stopping on things for too long.
Sandy
Riley's
Hook.
is like sugar and rainbows all over.
I can't. I actually am not capable of consuming information as fast as Jessica does when she's looking through, like scrolling through on Instagram or whatever. Like she'll show me something and like I'm trying to take in the whole thing and read it and everything else, and she's like, "You're so slow," and
Yeah.
or she'll like go to the next thing and I'm like, "Are you even reading? Like, do you even know what that says? Are you looking at
Yeah,
it?"
you said it like this is a bad thing for you. I think it's a positive.
To digest it slow.
Yeah, to not like I
yeah,
don't know
I don't-
if people are actually digesting.
Yeah, man, they're getting half truths and they're acting like it's real.
I just don't. I don't like. That's the thing about Instagram that I just don't. When I'm on there, I don't get. I'm like, I can't share anything. I can't dive deeper. I don't know what this is. I don't have any like. It's just like a picture, like a graphic, and something says something, and it's
Yeah.
like
I send Brett, Riley, and Kelsey.
Riley's so mad at you because she's told you 100 times that she's on my Instagram.
Yours?
So she's
Actually, no, she hasn't. Maybe she. Okay, that reminds me of you guys. Oh, you don't follow anybody, so I can't say. But there's this guy who does Doc Dag jokes, and it's so funny.
they try to make each other laugh.
It's ones that we've heard before, but the way they deliver it is so funny. Yeah, they basically no.
coffee
I mean,
mug?
they're just sitting there with the coffee mug, and he goes, "What do you say?" He goes, My wife says you never listen to me," which I thought was a really weird way to start a conversation.
I saw Marcus counting, so it must be time. Are you ready?
He's
oh
done.
shoot, I forgot.
All
Okay,
You want to go?
I could probably go.
Okay, rock
Okay.
and roll. 30-second synopsis. What is it? 9 words.
Old, grumpy, greedy man learns consequences of his actions.
Nice.
You know, if you ever get in a bind, adjectives are your friend.
Sure. Yeah. The problem is I'm usually taking out things,
Oh, yeah.
not adding.
Oh, Marcus is being wordy.
Yeah. So you got to take articles out and things. You got to be careful. That the tricky
Remind
part.
me of what an article is.
An article.
I'm not saying you. I honestly don't know.
It's like the Wall Street Journal. No, I'm just kidding. A and the.
Yeah, that's an article.
Yeah.
Of course. All right, and now to my word salad. We'll call it. Here we go. Bah humbug. Poor people, sick people, Merry Christmas? Jacob Marley pays a visit on a door knocker. 3 ghosts, past, present, future. Scrooge's past. Everything makes a little more sense when we know someone's past, doesn't it? Scrooge's present. There is one scoreboard in life. Money. The Cratchit family scoreboard simply cannot be bought, though. Scrooge. Curious. He meets man's children, ignorance and want. It doesn't end well. Scrooge's future. Not great, Bob. How much was Scrooge despised? They took the shirt off the man's dead cold back. Coming back? Redemptive. Did I pick the right word there?
Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
Was
redemptive.
did I pick the right word there part of it?
We're going to keep it.
Okay.
We're going to keep it.
That was good.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a very redemptive story.
Yeah, man. It's great. I got plenty of questions on that, though, that I'm excited to ask.
This is the
about.
first. Is this the first nonfiction, or sorry, the first fiction that we're doing?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, fiction and movies, but not books.
Right.
Yeah.
First fictional book.
Making
So I'm excited to
history
see how
on
this
the
goes.
pod. Making history.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I mean, it is fiction, but there is a lot of parallelisms
There's a
in his
lesson.
own life
Yeah.
of characters. So, like,
Oh, in his life?
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. Well, do you guys know Charles Dickens' like story with his father?
I don't.
So I think it's probably smart that we would lay that foundation. His father was imprisoned in a debtor's prison when Dickens was 12. So Dickens then had to work at a factory to provide for his family, drop out of school at the age of 12.
Yeah.
And so the Ebenezer Scrooge is based off of a famous political figure in Britain. I'll look up his name, but John Ellis. But there's a lot of speculation that he drew the details of the character about his love-hate relationship with his father.
That's interesting.
And then Tiny Tim was based off of his nephew who died as a child. So like there's a lot of things that he drew from his own personal experience to write this.
I don't know a lot about debtors' prisons. I guess I could guess, but
When you
they,
said it,
they
though,
did
it
say
fired
something.
off some memories that were deep in my core somewhere. So
Of
maybe
knowing
I saw,
that?
yeah. So maybe I saw something around that. idea.
Well, there's a point at the end where
Reminds me of Parasite.
there's a point
The
at the end.
debtor's prison.
Yeah, well, these people, this Caroline or this, they're saying to whom is our debt going to be transferred, and they're worried about who it's going to be transferred
Right.
to. You know, because they could put them in a prison or whatever.
Did Les Miserables have any storyline around that same type of idea?
Debtor's prison?
Yeah.
It's been a long
Yes.
time since I
Yeah,
say
that's what it is. I remember that because I read great literature in AP English.
You
read
read
Les
Les Mis?
Yes.
That thing is huge.
Dude, I'm telling you, Adam Homo, the best teacher I've ever had in my entire life, Wabash grad.
He got you to read that?
Well, so here's the deal. I probably
Cliff
cliff
notes?
noted quite a bit of it, and then instead of writing a report, we always made a movie instead. And he loved our movies.
got
so,
it.
So yeah,
Was there a movie that you could draw inspiration from? Was there an old Les Mis?
no,
No,
dude,
well,
You didn't do that?
well, we didn't typically do. Not to my knowledge, Dan may have dug in and done.
they
that kind of
probably
stuff,
just
but
picked a scene from.
I was just the pretty face. I was there to make it. So what made us? That was great. I love that background. What made us stop and think plenty during A Christmas Carol?
All right, I'll start.
Do it.
So as I'm mowing, because I'm listening to this, word to the wise, Spotify has probably a bunch of different versions.
Mm-hmm.
The one that I chose was dramatized, and the ghosts were so bad. Don't listen to the one. I'll look up which one I listened to.
Was
but
it the same narrator the entire time? He was just using
no.
different
It
voices?
was no. In fact, at the very beginning of the book says it. All the actors say, "I play this one. I play this one." It's like 20
I liked
actors.
the one I got.
You really?
Yeah.
So let's look
I
them
liked
up.
the one that I listened to part of too.
Was it on Spotify?
Yeah.
I'll share my link with Riley so she can
So
put it
mine-
on the socials.
Yeah.
I don't know how I can identify which one this is, but it was not good. It's the one with like the orange bar on the side.
This is what mine looks like.
Okay, yeah, that looks way better.
That's mine. Yep. That's
Yeah,
mine.
that
It was like the guy
I
who
can't
played.
even tell who read it.
So the narrator was good.
Narrated
and
by Jacob Daniels is
Okay.
the one that we listened to, and he was fantastic.
It's great.
I'm gonna listen to this. We have to drive 2 hours to my parents, and then 2 hours back around Christmas time, and I've already decided that this is what we're gonna listen to.
So I'll do that one
on
for
the,
my kids.
Yeah.
This one, the one I did was narrated by LibriVox Community, and the Ebenezer Scrooge was fantastic. The ghosts were like, I thought it was Alexa or Siri. Just kind of took me out of it, but I already knew the story, so it wasn't that bad. Anyway, what did you ask?
What made you think? You were listening to it.
You were listening to it
you were
mowing the
listening to it
yard.
while you were mowing. You were really excited to
Okay,
speak
so
to
yeah, so I'm listening to Scrooge deal and think through some of the way he thinks about society and people working and unpopular take. I agreed with a lot of the things he was saying at times, and it made me feel like, okay, should I not agree? Like this is the thing about the anti-heroes or the who's the bad guy, the antagonist, is that I think the ones where we're like everything they do is evil, everything they do is bad, is kind of dangerous because there are certain things that people will say, even though they're antagonists, that is true. And I kind of thought...
Is he the antagonist? Is he the protagonist in this?
You're right.
I think he's the protagonist.
He is the protagonist. But what I'm saying is, like, I guess the character that's supposed to be the evil character and not have any good redemptive parts.
Well, yeah, we've got to be
him.
careful not to make that... Like, it's not mutually exclusive. The antagonist can still say things that are not bad.
Yeah.
But
like, I guess the part, so this is interesting because I do give, I tithe, I give to charity, I spend my time but to go into someone's store and make them feel bad for not giving and to pressure them is interesting to me. It was a different time and everyone was doing it, but like, is that necessarily always healthy to make someone feel bad for not giving to that particular charity?
no.
It's probably a little different, like just because the culture within these towns, everybody conceivably. I mean, what is it?
It reminds me of Christmas with the Cranks.
But
Exactly.
the thing is like everybody would have known each other within these certain number of blocks and all the different shop owners and who was who and these different things.
It was truly a town that depended on one another.
You'd
Everything.
have to.
Yeah.
This is the 1800s.
You're buying your food from somebody you know, somebody you rub shoulders with.
It's not like you're jumping on the internet or even calling somebody on the phone.
Yeah.
And so all the interaction is in person like that. All the fundraising would have to be done knocking on the
So is it ever
doors
right to
or
make
whatever.
someone feel bad for not giving to the poor? Or in this case, I mean, the bigger thing is that particular thing, that particular institute.
I probably, when I'm always, if I'm raising money, I'm not trying to make somebody feel bad if they're not giving to my particular cause, but I am trying to get their heartstrings pulled so that they're passionate about that specific cause.
I get that.
I think the relationship between the two people matters. Like I feel like
Sure.
a husband and wife who the wife knows the financial situation, knows where things are going and not going, absolutely appropriate to call out a husband for not giving or whatever. But in this situation, you don't know. It's a matter of the heart. Any giving is a matter of the heart.
What's interesting is this is like 10 years ago, you and I were having a conversation, Brett, and I can't remember what it was. I was considering, I don't know why we were talking about this, but it was like $500. I was like, I'm praying about giving $500. And your response to me was, I don't know if you need to pray about giving $500. You might need to pray about giving $5,000. I think you just give $500. For him to say that, he had to know me and had to know my financial situation and had to know what the thing was within context. Yeah. So what you're saying is pretty interesting in terms of like the small town. I do get that.
Yeah, well, there would have been familiarity. Is my only point.
Mhm.
It's not.
And they're
a small
going
town.
in
I'm
knowing
pretty sure
like this is his MO.
I'm pretty sure this is essentially London, so it's not a small town. But like there's gonna be a certain number of shops within a certain
Right.
geographic footprint,
Right.
So where they're all gonna know.
And the scene is to establish him, not them. But I just thought that was interesting.
Am I crazy to? I think I long to live in a time or a location like that.
Oh, really, Brett? Because when I said what era, you said 90s businessman
Chicago
20 years ago.
All right. Well, I stand corrected. I
You just didn't read enough.
You just
Man.
wanted to watch Jordan.
How cool.
So 1840s.
I don't. Whatever. Maybe it's even today, but it's a town that just chooses we're gonna go against the grain and we're gonna be old school and we're all gonna depend on
I'm
each other.
not
And
super against us all just getting a bunch of land and homesteading. I'm not. I'm really not.
I think it'd be so cool. I don't know why, but I
We
have
could just
this
podcast
very
all day.
I have this very romanticized view of an old downtown where I'm walking down it and everybody knows each other and that's where you're doing all your shopping. Like downtown Noblesville has that feel to me.
Fishers has that feel to me.
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
Fishers is
but
not too
the
different.
difference is it's not like not everybody's
can't get-
living
There's
right
not a
there.
square.
It's not necessarily the square, the geographic makeup of it. It's just I don't know, man. There's something cool about everybody lives right there, and I don't know.
So we talked a little bit about Scrooge. I really like at the beginning. I really like the nephew.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can tell like he's not super successful, but he's not super poor. You know,
The beginning?
Yeah. I mean, he's poor in Scrooge's eyes, but I mean, he's hosting a family dinner.
Yeah.
It's not Cratchit poor.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Right.
he's got bills to be paid or whatever. But I just really I just felt like his perspective right there at the beginning was phenomenal, and it's contrasted directly with what Scrooge is saying about Christmas. Right. Basically, I can't believe we're going to take this day off and we're not going to make money and you've got bills to pay and all of these things. And then right away, the nephew frames it. So if this is all really a dream of Scrooge's, it's the nephew's doing right here in this paragraph right at the beginning.
You're saying
He's the influence of
he
the
knocks
dream?
over
Yeah.
the first domino. You're saying, yeah.
I think so. And it was an impassioned speech. I don't know that we have time to read it all,
Yeah.
but it was really,
and this
really
is
good.
the nephew when he goes back and it's Christmas present. It's the family that's hosting his family Christmas.
Yep. And they're all playing the games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also thought that him, is it Fezziwig? This is is he an apprentice to Fezziwig?
Yeah, Scrooge is.
So you kind of see Scrooge in Christmas Past also getting a chance to witness or re-witness Fezziwig on, I think it's New Year's Eve. Is that
No, it'd be
or
Christmas.
Christmas Eve?
Yeah.
So he's witnessing him like kind of turning off work mode early, setting up for a party, and at the time, I don't think Scrooge questions it a whole lot. It's him and another apprentice that are doing
he
this.
loved Fezziwig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting
Yeah.
that he experienced that.
Where do you feel like he lost his way? From going from that.
I feel like they show us that.
But like, what's the moment? What's the thing?
Well, is it a girl? Did you get a sense that it was his fiance, a girlfriend, somebody that he basically says, I'm choosing my career over this life with you?
But what happens between seeing the way to do it, a man who runs his business well, loves his wife, and he's being directly influenced by that. What happens between that and him saying, I'm choosing my career over my wife even?
He says it. He basically says he can't marry her yet. He can't do this because he needs to make his fortune first.
Right. So where is that established in his brain? Where in his brain does it go south from seeing what Brett is saying? Like, this guy is doing it by like exactly the way he wants to do it. Does he think Fezziwig is like... He's
unreachable.
Yeah, he's like he made his fortune first. That's why he's able to do this.
Yeah.
Is what you think,
Dude,
Yeah.
that's the trap.
I'll do that when I can.
When I can.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I have to work hard. I have to build this up. I feel like we see this a lot with people before millennials did this. Gen Z is doing this where they don't get married because they're not financially stable enough. They don't have kids till later because they're not financially stable enough. Well, heck, we got married and started having kids when we had no freaking money. And there were so many lessons and things in that. I actually think it's really healthy to get married early.
It's the trap most people fall into, whether it's saving money, investing, whether it's doing something creative like writing a book or whatever. It's once everything else is the way it's supposed to be, then I will move on to this next phase.
But the bar
of my life.
just keeps moving up, and then he gets addicted to watching those balances.
I think it became at some point it became his idol. It became what he was
which
worshiping.
she hits on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it just replaces it without him realizing it. I think I remember when Christmas passed, he gets to see himself as a child at I'm assuming it's like a boarding school or something.
Yeah.
And he's by himself.
Yep.
And is it his sister that probably comes back and says, "Hey,
Yes.
Father's gonna
It's his nephew's mom.
got it." Well, I don't know how that
Which is important because
It
it
is
shows that side of the family and how they continue to think a certain way.
Because his sister meant a lot to him.
Yeah. And his nephew is the embodiment of his sister.
I don't know how to connect it, but I'm thinking that experience is part of the answer to your question. But I haven't unraveled it yet.
His scarcity mindset.
Yes, something
Yeah.
that definitely had something to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit of this, like with my grandpa, who grew up like coming out of the Depression, where, to him, like, he never spent any money, like for gifts. Like they would get us gifts and things, but like we're talking super cheap.
Yeah.
You
sound a little bitter.
Always been no. It just is what it is.
Kidding.
Very, very loving. Always gave to us. Helped me with 4-H. Like, would do anything for us. You guys have met them before. My grandma and Grandpa Grove, but like incredibly stingy.
When
to the point where like I'm like, dude, why don't you guys enjoy some of this money that you have?
What the issue? And I dated a girl whose dad was like this. The way they show love,
Yeah.
the only way in some cases is because they cherish their money so much is when they buy something for somebody else. And I think that's when there becomes this like, I don't know, we've got people in our life that we feel that way about, and it's almost like you have to create this boundary of like, we're not going to let them give, or we're not going to let them give certain gifts or whatever the case may be, because then our kids or whoever, that's how they receive it. And it's like it's tough. It's really, really tough.
That wasn't necessarily the thing. Is like he just didn't give at all. So very Scrooge-esque in that. Is like you're just not Scrooge from a mindset perspective of he doesn't like his family or like Christmas or like these holidays or getting together. He came to every sporting event that I ever had. But from a money perspective, like it's the idol. Like it's the thing that you watch it continue to grow. And if it doesn't, it would stress him out.
In my experience, those people, when they do give anything, they want it to mean everything to you. Like
maybe I wouldn't know.
Yeah, that's my experience. For sure.
I don't have that experience.
To answer your question about when it turns for him, I had a quote from when he's at Fezziwig's Christmas Eve party.
When he's watching the
when
Christmas
he's watching
Eve party?
it. Well, no, yes. So his
specific
when
quote
he's
that
watching it with the ghost of Christmas past.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's a question, but the spirit's kind of, he's trying to understand Scrooge's view on all of this, because I think he's beginning to feel guilt and shame for how he's treating people. And he says this, he says, "It isn't that spirit. He has the power," talking about Fezziwig, "to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. Say that his power lies in words or looks, in things so slight and insignificant. It is impossible to add and count them up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune."
Yeah.
I think so that like he's beginning to remember a different way of life. But I don't know, in that moment,
man, I've talked to so many people. So many people recently, because of where the housing market is. This is funny, coming off of The Big Short, which is our last episode.
Yeah.
who have been offered, like in the last 2 weeks, people who've been offered X amount over, like they're building a house and they're going to move into it and they're offered, let's call it 20% over it.
Yeah.
And they're debating whether or not to do that, or they live in a house and someone's offering them money and they're thinking through, wow, that'd be great. And then they realize that that's what they wanted to spend the money on.
Yeah.
Like maybe they don't realize that, but I that was always what I'm saying to them is like, is there something that you value more than this house? Like you worked hard to attain this house, the money that you're looking for, you want more money for what? What is that thing you want the money for? Because what originally you told me is you wanted a great house to, have your family in for, maybe you're not going to travel more with this money that you got. I mean, maybe you will, but that's not going to last.
Yeah.
Like that is what you were saving up for. So what are we talking about here? And sometimes that pursuit of money with no purpose, it gets confusing.
Yeah. More doesn't necessarily equal more.
More is not more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're strategic with like what the house means for your family, like what a great investment. Like we just finished our basement and we paid for it, everything, and I knew that it was going to make us kind of, a little bit more tight with cash during this time of the year than we normally are. And anytime I wanted to get upset about that, it was like, dude, we're having movie nights every Friday down there. We're playing ping pong all the time. I've got my own designated workout space. Like it's been completely worth it, but you can easily forget about that if you start thinking and focusing on the wrong stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we keep going back to that scene, and that's a very, and the Jim Carrey adaptation is like vivid.
I think I have seen the Jim Carrey one.
Yeah.
Now that I'm listening.
You're talking about him watching Christmas Past? Yeah.
Like that's there's a lot of big scenes, and we're going to get to some like monumental scenes, but that scene is the one that resonates with me, I think, the most.
Because it kind of opens his mind to like, oh, wow, okay, maybe I'm on the wrong road here.
But then you're thinking to yourself, he had the perfect picture. He had the mentor. Like, where did the mentor go wrong in showing him what was important to get to that point? Like, did the mentor not do a good enough job of explaining, hey, you're not immediately going to be rich and happy. You're going to be poor and happy, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where he missed.
Well, I think as mentors, too, we can get caught up on recognizing the desired results of the business. Mm-hmm. And then what we're really doing is we're causing the other person to then only care about that thing because they want that praise. I think it can go sideways pretty easily.
Yeah, very quick.
There's a note. So I read, this is kind of parallel to this. So the ghost of Christmas past represents memory and reflection, while the ghost of Christmas future symbolizes fear and mortality.
Yeah.
And so if you focus on that like fear and mortality piece, I don't know that mortality ever really came into play for him when he's even the ghost of present. He is forced to watch. Whereas when he's in his office or at his house, he literally just ignores what's going on around him.
He's in his own world.
He's in his own world.
And it's just his books.
That's what allows him to not have empathy, to not care, and to keep doing that. The ghosts make him watch, and as soon as he sees it, he's saying, no, don't show me anymore. I don't want to see this, about his own life and about the life of others.
The past and the future, right? I mean, I think that what I wrote down about the past was that you just never know what kind of trauma is in people's is in people's past that in a lot of ways needs to be redeemed, right? Like, and then I definitely want to get to this later, so we'll hit on the redemption piece in a little bit, but and then it's also really wise to count your days, right? Like Proverbs talks about this, like how a wise man will count his days, right? So whether that's how many days or weeks you have left with your kids, right? It allows you to think about the end, and so that you can say, okay, you can have a little bit of a sense of urgency, right? Well, if in your head you're never going to die or you never think about your mortality, you're just gaining all of this cash for what? Like, for what does that exist? For what purpose am I doing that? And I think he came face to face with that when he's looking at his own mortality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really helpful for us to think about our mortality, whether that's in terms of, you know, I hesitate to say, like, in a selfish way, like, what's my legacy, right? But really more like, hey, who have I impacted and why? With what I've done, with my finances, with my giving, with my volunteering, whatever the case is. And what track am I on? Like, if I died tomorrow, what would that look like? Would I have accomplished what I feel like I'm supposed to?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I think listening to this, I think this is a really good option for a yearly listen, watch,
100%.
or read.
Well, that's what I was thinking is interesting about it being around Christmas, because if you don't believe that Christmas is celebrating the birth of Christ, and you only believe that it's a holiday where we're supposed to celebrate giving, love, and you take Christ out of the picture, in my opinion, it completely loses its value.
Well, I actually said that, interestingly, the book completely misses what I would say is the message of Christmas and the good news and the gospel, right? Because the good news is we can't do anything to save ourselves.
Right.
God had to come down, become a man in Jesus Christ, live as a man for those 33 years, experience everything as a man, not sin, and then die for us for that sin, because we can't redeem ourselves. And in a lot of ways, this book focuses on the good works and being a good person.
Because you were talking about redemption. He was like, if someone has pain in their past, it needs to be redeemed. And my question to you is, who he's the one, in this case, he's the one that redeems that himself.
Right. Well, I think that he gets the option to redeem it because of the spirits, like bringing it to his attention. Right. So I guess there's a spiritual element to it. And, you know, there's a lot of like Christian culture stuff in Dickens's book here, but they do completely miss the good news of Jesus.
It's almost like there's obvious things that as a Christian we're like, oh, that's bad about Christmas. But then the things that are probably the worst are the ones that seem good but distract us from the real reason for celebrating. So it's easy to be like, oh, like, if you make it all about gifts or this and that, like, clearly we'd all go, yeah, it shouldn't be about that, whatever. But then the tempting part to say, oh, like, to focus on being a good person, to treat people well, thinking that's going to earn us something.
Well, the ultimate gift is Jesus.
Yeah.
And we give because we've been given to.
Mm-hmm.
Not because we're trying to save ourselves in some way.
Yeah, I take my yearly watching back horribly.
No, I still think
because
it's
I think
really
he wrote
valuable.
it from a Christian's perspective.
Yes,
he just
yes.
doesn't give you that
And just a
cherry
matter
on
of
top.
perspective on what matters. Yeah, why does God have me here? Is that phrasing is what's missing, but in reality, if you're watching it through that lens,
If you are a Christian and you're watching this, then you can see it.
Yeah.
This book
they
popularized.
do miss that.
This book popularized Merry Christmas.
Popular.
Merry Christmas is not a thing before this book.
Was it Happy Christmas?
Probably.
Well, that's what the Donner Party they talked about in the book in Different Stars.
let's go south, Marcus. Let's talk about eating people now.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it definitely.
But that's what they talked about. They talked about this book and
Right.
how the Christian traditions in America didn't really come into play until after this book. Like,
Right.
he had a massive impact on
World
America
culture,
in this way and how we celebrate Christmas.
Yeah, it was not a thing. It was all the traditions that were happening in England didn't really translate over until after this book. And so, I mean, the popularity of the book itself, it sold out in 6 days. It's since its circulation, it's never been out of circulation, which a lot of books
So he had to have been popular and then
Yeah, he had already
every
written
original print. They
I just
made
don't know
was
where
gone in
I don't know where
6
it came in
days.
his lexicon.
6 days.
I just don't know where it came in his lexicon.
Pre-social media, pre any of the advertising we know of now, like that's wild.
Well, now you can print order, so it's kind of different.
Sure. And also too, that was the main form of entertainment. Still was reading. So I guess maybe I'm wrong, but
yeah,
that's wild to me.
That's something that I wrote down as like, kids would have read this, adults would have read this. You couldn't get a lot of adults to read this now because it's written at a grade level that's higher than, 5th grade or whatever. And
you think adults will not read this because it's the way that it's
old
written? English?
Yeah, I do.
Huh.
Yeah.
Like it confuses them. They're not going to.
If you think about everything that you're told now, you're told to write to what grade level?
5th.
Yeah. And they just didn't do that. Like Dickens didn't do that, and it's so much more rich because of that.
Yeah.
And I just think, like, what are we missing in our culture because we're dumbing everything down? It's really frustrating to me.
So they say write to a 5th grade level, but there's still works if you're doing that are really good. Not now, and we're not.
They're
and I'm
good
not
philosophically.
I'm not talking about.
You're missing
fiction,
out on
though.
the beauty of language.
Mm-hmm. Well, so this book, to get back to the success of the book, he wrote this book in 6 weeks. So he wrote the novella in 6 weeks. I mean, this is
and
the
he
talent.
had to drop out of school when he was 12.
Yep.
Incredible.
Wrote it in 6 weeks. It was published on December 19th, 1843. Comes out 6 days before Christmas, sells out in the next 6 days leading up to Christmas.
Does it say how many?
How many copies? I could probably look that up.
Probably wasn't a ton, but that's pretty cool.
So he wrote this in 6 weeks. I officially feel like a loser, man. I gotta get on it. We got a writing session on Friday.
Well, I mean, how many pages is it?
Huh?
How many pages is it?
In this book, it's like 100.
More than my book.
Yeah.
103.
Dude.
Yeah, but it's a
I got
story.
the first. Did I tell you
There's
this?
a difference between writing a story and writing something
That's true.
I got my book back, and the type size and book size that they chose to run the first draft in. I'm looking at the formatting. I'm like, okay, this is really good. And then I'm getting to the end, 75 pages.
Yeah.
I'm like, do not choose. I am not launching a book with 75. It is a short book, but like,
so you gotta add in some pages with like just a quote in between chapters.
Need some pictures.
Yeah, you got room to play with, man.
I'm totally cool with it being a small book, but it can't be under 100 pages.
There's a girl in the book we read, Passive Income, Aggressive Retirement, where she kind of made the book being a business card kind of famous.
Yeah.
But she made it, literally the book is the size of maybe like 4 business cards put together. So it's a very, very small book, but makes it feel
That's interesting.
big.
Passive, that particular book or a different book?
No, that book talks about the girl that
Oh, yes.
created the book. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just make it smaller.
Yeah. No, I mean, like the Ryan Holiday size I really like, but
Yes.
there's just some limitations with Amazon.
Is that what size? So what's the
The standard size that they want to print in is 5.5 by 8.5.
and that's probably way cheaper because they're doing more of those.
Yeah, I
this.
mean, they're just
That's probably about
that
this.
is. It looks like more like 8 by 5.5.
Yeah. This is a little small.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's good. That's great. And the type is anywhere between 10 and 14 point.
Yeah.
14 seems big.
14's pretty big. Just do the trick that I did in college where the type was 12, so it was 12 point, but all the periods were 14.
Does that actually work?
Oh, yeah.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah.
What about
How much more does that give you?
A lot.
They cared more. They cared more about the amount of pages than the word count.
Okay, listen, by the time that I was a junior, I just stopped caring and I just turned in what I turned in. But when I thought that I had to get to a certain number of pages, the trick was to do it in 12-point font,
And then
but
double
make
space.
just make all of the periods 14-point font.
How long did it take you?
No, you
Well,
can
no, you
search.
can do
You can
Command F.
do all the
Oh,
periods.
that's smart people stuff.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, pretty awesome.
That's
in my
genius.
Opinion. Yeah.
That's great.
Like how many more? How like
A lot.
really?
Oh yeah,
From the
significantly
period?
more than you think.
Yeah, because there's a period in every sentence.
Well, because what it does is now every.
Wait, did you do the exclamation points too in 14? Because that would be a little
I probably
obvious.
didn't write with very many exclamation points for like
I hate
research papers
exclamation
and
points.
stuff.
I'm a
'Cause I
big
don't-
fan.
I put exclamation
I
points.
love exclamation points.
I put exclamation points in emails sometimes. It just depends on who I'm communicating with and what I'm trying to communicate.
My mother-in-law calls them explanation points.
Explanation points.
Shout out to BB.
There are words like that Riley won't let me correct our daughters on because she loves how it sounds so much.
Dude, that's literally what dads are for, is to correct their kids on that stuff.
Rose will not stop
Because
saying,
moms won't do it.
She goes, I have an ear confunction.
Confunction.
I have an ear confunction.
Chocolate milk, some milk. I thought that I thought my favorite ghost was Christmas present. I just love this idea that he's floating around. He only has a day, right? And then he's just essentially spreading great Christmas
That's
cheer.
my favorite phase for sure. I don't know if I liked that spirit the most. I don't even know if, but that phase that he gets to see.
Well,
is my favorite.
so I loved him because I loved the spirit himself because of the way that he not only is spreading this cheer all around, but then he is very tough and directly tough on Scrooge to the point where he brings his words and says them back to him in a way that it makes Scrooge feel sufficiently terrible.
And it's when the spirit all of a sudden ages really quickly. The children are hanging on to him. Did the children get lashed or something like that?
Yeah, it's freaky.
Yeah, and then he ends up Scrooge's words about workhouses and prisons. He turns them on him.
Yep.
I think that was kind of like Scrooge's worst nightmare of oh my gosh, I really understand who I've become. And then it's then it's over.
Yeah.
Okay, so numbers are fascinating. I looked it up. This is interesting. So, took them 6 weeks to write it. Mm-hmm. Took them 6 days to sell out of 6,000 copies. Isn't that weird? Numbers are funny. 6,000 copies was the total run.
That's pretty good back then, man.
Sure. It cost 5 shillings, which in 1843 is how many dollars today? What do you guys think?
No idea.
Well, just think about books. Think about how much a book costs. Think about back
$10.
in the day. That's what I would have thought too. It would have been like $10, $15 because the note said that are you looking it up, you cheater?
Yeah, that's what you wanted me to do.
I said guess, man.
Oh, got it. Okay.
It's way I have this conversation, and I know I've done it with you guys before, where it's we could look this up, but it's way more fun to just debate for a little while.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Okay, Brett.
I think it's
what do you think? Yeah, $33.
But that's a big investment.
Well, so
that's
he said. One of the notes was he priced it so that most middle class people could afford it. But one of my notes is he wrote this book to talk about the disparity between the rich and the poor, and then he prices his book at $33. That's a lot.
Well, that was entertainment, though.
What do you mean?
It was the entertainment. Books,
sure.
music.
But if you're writing about the rich suppressing the poor, that's an interesting move to make with that book.
Plot twist, I am Scrooge, the end. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't see that coming.
Well, obviously it worked. He's a pretty popular author, and he knew where his value was, I guess.
We were talking about Christmas present. Man, him hopping in and playing the games with his family.
Yeah.
Obviously, they don't know he's playing.
Yeah.
But you almost got the sense that Scrooge was back to being like a kid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's begging him, hey, let me stay for one more. Let me stay for one
Yep.
more. Now, he begs to stay for one more, and the spirit kind of has to be talked into it, but then he lets him. But then it also allows him to hear what his family really thinks of him in some cases. So it's kind of like
Be careful what you wish for.
I loved that part of Bob Cratchit and of the nephew, though, because they're really trying to say, hey, we can all poke fun at him, we can make fun of him, but let's at least toast to him and hope for his happiness those things.
So cool. Not quite praying for your enemies, because I don't think they viewed him as an enemy.
Yeah, what is my role in all this? What am I supposed to be doing regardless of what he does? What am I supposed to feel and do and think regardless of what he does?
You're talking about from Cratchit's
point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah,
my
and I thought Cratchit was
responsibility.
teaching his family a good lesson there. It's hey, we might be frustrated at him, this, that, whatever, but without him and without him paying me, we don't have any of this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know,
That's where I thought the Christ in those people was brought to light
I thought so
without
too.
actually saying
I
it.
thought the same. Yeah. Is that like Christian spirit?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, good. I mean, don't talk about it, be about it. He was being about it, right? Anything else with Christmas? Christmas present. Shortly after that is when we get to.
Yeah, I just thought it was
aging.
neat that he took him to so many different types of places, and everyone was celebrating Christmas. It reminded me a lot, again, of the Indifferent Stars Above, where they're in the worst situation possible, but those people still took the time to save back food, specifically thinking about Christmas.
I was blown away by that part of the story where they had saved special food for Christmas.
Yeah.
I was so shocked at that.
right, but like, doesn't matter, rich, poor, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you're saying this is important. These traditions are important. This holiday is of utmost importance. Because without it, we have no path to heaven. You know, we die.
Well, speaking of death, Christmas future is next.
Brutal.
Tough, real tough.
Did you think of Dementors when you were reading this?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
That was exact. Like, I was like, I wonder
The
if
amount
she.
of times we bring up Harry Potter.
I
in this
wonder if
podcast.
she stole the idea of Dementors from the Ghost of Christmas Present.
There's a lot of stealing going on in modern literature.
Yeah,
like
which
we
is
said,
great.
there's no new ideas.
No new ideas, just new ways of saying things. So I'm doing a little bit more digging. It's clear that this was is Christian allegory. I mean,
Yeah.
you can make the argument that it's similar to like Pilgrim's Progress.
Yeah, you could.
So they're not
Where
just,
it was just kind of assumed because of the time period. You're saying?
no, it's not assumed. Like the biographer of Dickens talks about his influences
As an allegory.
As allegory,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like you if you really appreciate the way he's writing, the words he's using, and you have to appreciate the allegory too. And not
well, it was allegorical.
well, we won't hold that against him. That's for each man to. Shout out to A Knight's Tale.
One of our first ones. Yeah, I guess that's a really good point. Is that it is meant to be allegory, and so.
But okay, so it's meant
it
to
would
be
nice
allegorical.
if it was a little.
But if
a
they're
little more
sitting
explicit.
around, the table praying, talking about the reason for the season, it'd be pretty easy just to put in the reason for the
Yeah.
season.
But I mean, it's not apples to apples, but like so much of the Narnia series is symbolic and whatnot, and we don't say it's not.
But the difference is that is symbolic. It's a lion playing the character.
Yeah,
There's
also
no-
allegory, but
Yeah.
But I think the same type of if that sparked an interest in somebody going, we should look into this Christianity thing. I think that's a win.
but there's not a. They're celebrating Christmas. There's not a Christ figure in this book.
I guess you can argue it either way. Could he have been thinking, if I make this book too much about Jesus, it's not going to spread this Christmas story?
I don't know.
If that truly is his thought process, I think it could be good. Rem hates it.
I don't hate it. I struggle with it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's
So Miracle on 34th Street. Have you guys seen that?
a long time ago. I haven't seen it in a minute.
I watched it last year, I think, for the first time straight through. Do you know the story? Have you seen it?
I can vividly see the cover on Netflix.
It's basically, in short, a guy who stumbles into being the Santa Claus for a mall.
Yeah.
And you find out he actually kind of is Santa Claus, and he knows things, and he's pretty special, and everyone really likes him. And then but then he gets basically put on trial for confusing people, and he's crazy, and he actually thinks he's Santa Claus, and that is supposed to be allegorical. It's literally supposed to be the picture of Christ, and I had no idea.
Oh, whoa!
Yeah, until I got to the very end of the movie, I'm like, wait a second,
Yeah,
because that is super like straight up like Christ allegory. So that's where it's like the difference between that, Narnia, and this is like you're right, there's no central character that's playing that's supposed to portray that. It's just a scene in which they need to feel and do things in a certain way based on a piece of history that we all know, but they don't address it.
Yeah, it's like it is right. It is our Christian duty to give and support everyone in this time, right? Like, but it's almost a nod to the good works side of things versus the good work of Christ, and,
which is
and the
fine.
Why we did the
which
good
is
works.
fine that we talk about that.
It's
and fine
not
that
negative.
we do it. Yeah, it's not a bad thing.
It's not
just
negative.
you kind of why do we do it?
Yeah.
Anyway,
We're into Christmas future. This gets set up. They stumble upon a few men discussing a funeral. And one of my favorite lines
How
from
does
that,
he not realize it's himself?
dude. Okay, so that okay.
'Cause he doesn't want to.
You brought it up. You brought it up. At the time it was written, were people really surprised by many of the things that were meant to be surprises in this story? Because it was the first time somebody, like, we've seen a million movies and books that have.
that's a great point.
So back then, was it actually like, were they like, oh, it's Scrooge that's dying? Like, do you think that
No,
really?
I think they knew it was Scrooge.
You think so?
Who's they? The audience?
The audience.
So what are we asking about? Does that matter, or does it matter that Scrooge knew it was Scrooge?
Brett's asking about the audience. I was asking about Scrooge.
Right.
I was asking about
Is it
Scrooge.
believable
like, how
that
does
Scrooge does not know?
know that that's him?
I think if it's only believable if the audience was at a point where they hadn't heard stories like this so many times.
No, the audience knew that it was. I think
Yeah,
I think it's
that's-
pretty obvious.
No, but Scrooge, I think it's.
Did he not
doesn't.
want to
He doesn't
know?
want to know. He does not want to know. He
I will
doesn't-
give you that. Is that he just doesn't want to know.
I mean, I've what perfect example. Fantasy football last night. I will believe my players will score the points they need to all the way up until the last minute of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I get it.
Regardless.
I do
It
understand.
is
that.
funny.
I'm
those
doing
games
math.
You play in your head.
Oh.
And you totally
You're like
believe it.
constantly doing the math. Oh,
By the way, how dumb is the NFL for not leaning into fantasy football and gambling until a couple years ago? Because this literally
by the way,
makes
how
all
awesome
the
is
games.
Joe Mixon? My goodness.
He's pretty good. He's pretty good. So yeah, they're one of my favorite lines
Third
when they're
round.
discussing, which we come to find out, attending Scrooge's funeral. He says, "I don't mind going as long as lunch is provided."
Same.
So funny.
Potato salad.
So the question is there anything more telling about a person's life than an empty funeral?
Probably not.
You know where my head goes? This is so funny. It's not funny. It's did they do a good job of promoting it? Is my question.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I'm not talking about Scrooge, but just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know,
The
how
event
did you,
itself.
be like, listen, did we let people know? What
Dude, we're
mediums
too
did we
event
use?
driven, all three of us.
Like,
It's
what
so
an event. So where my head went with this scene was, right.
Do you care about your funeral?
Do I? Yeah.
I don't care about mine.
I care about my funeral because I care about my life.
The only
Once
thing that I care about my funeral is that the gospel is presented.
Well, then you care about
what
your
if
funeral.
there's nobody there to hear it?
Huh?
What if
Yeah.
there's nobody there to hear it?
I don't know if I care about that either.
I think God's in control of all of this.
I think, and I might be putting too much stock in it, maybe it's because we just read it, but yeah, I think I want to have an impact on people to the point where, yeah, they feel like this guy made an influence in my life, and not that they owe it to me, but they feel moved to be like, I want to attend this.
Rulin just passed away, had 800 people at his funeral, and the gospel was alive.
Oh,
and it
yeah.
was in front of
Yeah.
people who are successful
That's-
business entrepreneurs
that's
that do not
definitely-
get that often.
That's definitely important to me.
Do you
Yeah.
think that was in his will? Of
Yeah,
how- yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Got to update my will.
My aunt, my
Well,
my aunt,
oh.
I'm saying of how he wanted
His physical will, I don't know.
because there were
It's
multiple speakers.
Everyone knew that this is what he would have
yeah,
wanted. Everyone knew.
which is the important thing.
Yeah.
My aunt died about a year and a half ago, and her funeral was just beautiful, and it was all centered around the gospel, and it was really impactful because of the way she lived her life.
Yeah.
You know, and so
Well, so
I
on
think
that note,
that's the important stuff.
that's what I wrote down. Have you guys ever written your own obituary?
I haven't. It seems weird.
Have you ever done that?
I haven't wrote an obituary.
Or obituary?
Orbit.
Your obituary. You've never written them?
No.
I
So
have
it's a
not.
great drill. It's something that I've done at a couple sales conferences,
Yeah.
or they encourage you to do it.
I've seen
And
people
I actually
that
do
have
it.
encouraged it.
Yeah.
I just have never done it.
It's an interesting drill.
Do you
should
do
do
it like how you want it to be, or do you do
Or
it
how
how
it is presently?
is present?
You.
I would have a hard time not making
It doesn't matter which one you choose. It is convicting when you do it. So if you choose to do it what I want it to say, you read it and you be like, is this actually what it would be? Or you write what it would actually be and you're convicted about, do I want this to be better?
Writing it how it would actually be is actually how we can experience Scrooge's experience with the spirits.
That's right.
Because that's one of the things I go back and forth on is like, dude, nobody gets the chance to do what Scrooge got. Yes, he changed, but we would all change, I think, if we experienced what he experienced. Should we really be celebrating him
it's
that
similar
much?
to you've done this before, where you've sent out an email to a bunch of different people and you're saying, hey,
asking for feedback.
brutal honesty here.
Yeah.
I need these questions answered.
Dude, I don't know if everybody has the friend group that would supply it, but I got it. And it was hard to read, but it was helpful.
Yeah.
Really?
It was, it was definitely helpful. And I was so young, too.
So
I was
how do you
probably, like,
process that?
I probably didn't process it enough. Like, it was more of like this is a great idea, I'm going to do it. And I probably actually, there was one piece of advice I got. I put a lot of stock in certain people who gave me feedback, and I was like, I trust them a lot. There's one specifically that I got that I remember making changes based on, but most of it, I don't know. I think I just did it to do it. I think if I did it now and actually, it's kind of like journaling. Journaling's great. Actually reading back what you journaled.
It wasn't that long ago. Wasn't it like five years ago?
No, dude, this was like.
So I'm not thinking of the one you asked 5 years ago.
Okay.
I
Got it.
Because you do this a lot. You've done this
I thought
a few
you've
times.
done this like 2 or 3 times.
He did it for different
I did
purposes.
it 2 years ago, but different purpose. But
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep.
Should we go to the conclusion?
Hey, before we move on, so what did you, because I want to do this, what did you write and email your friends asking for feedback?
There's a template in, I don't remember, it was something from actually Hal Elrod that it was a template that he used, and I basically just copy and paste, but it's basically just like, hey, I'm looking for blind spots in my life that I'm either not aware of or I'm ignoring because they hurt too much, and I'm giving you full permission. I will not react. We will not burn any bridges. Like, I actually want you to be brutally honest with me. What do I need to hear?
And what was your purpose originally in doing that?
I think I just became aware that it was even a thing that, this is a good idea. I want to do it. Maybe
Probably personal growth.
And you went into it thinking, I'm going to get a lot of sunshine and rainbows back.
No, but I think part of it was also I was young and I wanted to appear impressive to certain people, and I thought them getting that email would be like, oh, this guy is very.
That's interesting.
So I think there was a part of that.
Like a
I was probably
marketing,
22.
like a marketing aspect.
Yeah, I think it was like 20, 21,
You had to
22.
have been
something
older
like
than that.
No, man. Earl was still our reach manager.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Because I remember he was one of the people I sent it to. Yeah. Yeah. So I think there was a little bit of some selfishness there too, but yeah, it was valuable.
I'm going to do it. Yeah. And I'm going to write my obituary.
Obituary. All the people that were in my orbit.
So before we get to the conclusion, I just thought a scene that was very hard to listen to and telling was two things: the pawn shop that they're all in, and they kind of all stole from Scrooge.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right.
And they take it to him, just describing like literally stealing the shirt off his back, ripping off the curtains.
And no one cares.
No one cares. Then the spirit takes him to kind of his deathbed, and it describes the rats underneath the floorboard just waiting for him to be dead so they can rip him apart. Like, just like
vivid.
Oh man, it was great writing.
Yeah.
Amazing writing by Dickens. But that was tough. We can get to conclusions here. Marcus, you want to kick us off?
Well, I just, he completely shifts and completely changes, and it's overnight, literally. How do you react to people that do that? Because I'm always skeptical.
I think the longer I'm a Christian, sadly, the more skeptical I get. It's really easy to forget where you came from. When I was a new Christian, I was that person, so it was so easy for me to celebrate other people.
Yeah, I guess I usually take it from a posture like, I'm really happy, and I'm happy that you're having this, and then like, we'll see.
Yeah, no.
I think because I've been like burned a lot of times
we get
on
jaded.
people that like change overnight like that, and they get really like, I want them to be in that space, and I want them to experience that, and I don't want to discount it. But I also want to be there because I feel like I know that there's going to be tough times coming later. Yeah. And so I just, it's written, it's a great ending. It's it's meant to be a happy ending. He's going in there and he gets this huge turkey and he's being generous and everything else. But what happens next year? I don't know. It's really, really easy when you've had that moment to shift everything and go all in. But is the change sustained?
I think the most important change to make is your ability to digest feedback, because if you start to do your old tendencies, start to be grumpy again, start to snub people who are asking for the poor, do you let Bob Cratchit call you out on it? Do you let your nephew impact you?
That's a good point.
And if that's the change that you made, then you'll be all right.
I agree.
But if it's just, wow,
if it's
I had a
just
bad
because
dream.
you had this experience.
Yeah.
I think the more important conversation is what Mark's is talking about. How do you act as the person who, not to say anybody's perfect, but is on the other side watching the transformation happen?
If you're the nephew.
Yeah. What is it? Full support? Is it support and there's got to be grace and truth, right? So, I think it's an important conversation to have, especially as leaders and as Christians. It's like, how do we be real about it, but also I don't want to buzzkill anybody's experience either. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But are we making it tough? Does it have to be that tough? Is it truly just full support? It isn't
tough, by the way. Conversions happen, and they do happen that quick.
Yeah.
So that part isn't tough. But what's tough is you've got all of these bad habits behind it. And so how can the nephew and
the honeymoon phase
how can Cratchit, who are probably the two people who have the most influence on him and the only real relationship with him, how can they continue to speak into his life, and does he allow them to do so?
I think I've thought myself into my viewpoint. I think you're right. I think there needs to be some, because, okay, so I've got this guy that we were at a conference. We were at our national trip last March, and he's kind of coming around on the idea of God and Christ, and he's getting ready to get married, whatever, and I just Amazoned a book you guys have read, More Than a Carpenter, before. Yeah. Killer book, especially for people with like questions.
John Gordon
McDowell.
No, so you're thinking of The Carpenter.
The Carpenter.
More than a Carpenter is McDowell.
More Than a Carpenter is basically this dude who sets out to prove that Jesus isn't real, and then proves it to himself. So get him that. So we're having back and forth text every now and then, and he describes the church that he's going to. And it definitely is the way he's describing it is like a mega church that's more of like TED Talks versus getting to scripture. And I'm excited for him, but I'm like, hey, dude, that's awesome. It sounds like it could be a great situation. Would love to talk to you about it. There's bubbles. And then he responds and goes, what did you mean by it could be great?
Yeah.
And you have this moment where you're like, am I going to lean into this or not?
Yeah.
So I decide, hey, I'm just going to completely lean into it. And he responds and is not happy at all.
Yeah.
But then 3-4 months later,
you're raining on his parade. He's all sunshine and rainbows.
3-4 months later, he comes back and he goes, I totally get what you meant now.
Yeah. So, if the relationship is there, you can do that.
I think I thought the relationship was further along than it was, and it wasn't on his end, and that's fine. Yeah. But the truth is,
you know what, though? You, of all people, can come from a place of authority on that fact.
Sure.
Because you were that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So I agree. We got to be excited, but also still trust.
I'm just speaking from there's a lot of experience. I've just been blessed enough to have a lot of people who I've watched who went from being atheists or non-Christians or whatever over into Christianity, and then coaching them through that,
Yeah.
And so I do think there's a lesson here that is past A Christmas Carol, right? And it's what is that? And I think that that's a cool thing for our audience to think about, because we are called to go and make disciples, of all nations, and that's that is what Jesus said to do, right? And part of that is you're going to see these conversions like this, and it feels like it's overnight, and that flip happens and people are really excited. But what happens then when all of the bad habits that they've been building for however long that they've been alive are continuing to be there? And how do they reconcile with that? And how are you there for them in those moments?
Yeah. And there is parallel. I mean, we talked about it before, but there is. I remembered one part where Marley's character talks about the wise man following the star.
Yeah,
So there is definitely imagery that they use as straight biblical imagery,
for sure.
and they use the.
The chains are biblical too.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about Jesus
purgatory
being the breaker of the chains, but
Yeah.
Jesus is the breaker of the chains. It's not that you're able to take the chains off yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and that's my only potential real like issue with this like beautiful story.
Yeah. The thing that resonated with me at the end is the two characters that Ebenezer Scrooge was most panic, don't let this happen. His attitude was just like so depressed about was himself and Tiny Tim. Did you guys notice that? Like, as he's viewing all these scenes, the ones that impacted the most are who he was before, who he became, and then what happens to Tiny Tim. He's crying, don't let this happen to Tiny Tim.
Yeah.
And what we know now about Dickens is those two characters represented his father and his nephew who died.
Right.
So it's so interesting how you write a story based on the impact in your own life.
Yeah, and I think I think maybe for the first time Scrooge considered, like, I think he viewed all these people who were poor or whatever the case would be as you chose that. Once he saw the effect it had on people who couldn't do anything about it, like Tiny Tim, I think that's when it really gripped him.
And
like,
this
has got a ripple effect. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting how language is used to make you feel something? So Scrooge, that name, and I used to think, well, the reason we think Scrooge is like a bad guy or is because of this, but it's not. Like the letters used to do it. Like think about, I mean, we'll go back to Harry Potter, Slytherin, Snake.
Yeah. Yep.
Like
absolutely.
There's in our especially in the English language, there is harsh words that make you feel something, that let you know something about that character. Yeah. Scrooge.
Best quotes. We've been naming them all throughout. We ready to move on? Anything else stopped and made us think?
God bless us, everyone.
Yeah, that's one. That's a good one. I literally stopped at this paragraph and I was like, that's just beautiful. So I figured I'd read it for everybody just to give them a taste of
please.
Dickens here.
Let's do it.
Not a latent echo in the house, not a squeak and a scuffle from the mice behind the paneling, not a drip from the half-thawed waterspout in the dull yard behind, not a sigh among the leafless boughs of one despondent poplar, not the idle swinging of an empty storehouse door, no, not a clicking in the fire, but fell upon the heart of Scrooge with a softening influence and gave a freer passage to his tears. I read that and I was like, man,
that's not a fifth grade reading level.
that is so good.
Our buddy that's a librarian, friend of the show, said that he had this book in his classroom. Do you remember what grade when he was in the classroom and not
Third or
librarian?
fourth.
Yeah.
So he said he had kids try and read it and they were like, this is hard.
Yeah.
This is hard.
Yeah, and hard is good.
Yeah.
Struggle through it.
Yeah.
If they would rather die, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. That was his response to the idea of helping the poor.
Oh, jeez.
That just makes you hurt.
I liked this. He was told that I believe the second ghost or third ghost maybe, was going to show up at 1 a.m. No, second ghost was going to show up at 1 a.m. And the quote from the narrator is, now, being prepared for almost anything, he was not by any means prepared for nothing.
So funny.
Yeah. But it's
did you read the rest of that?
The rest he's like up and thinking about it.
The rest of it's really, he gets really funny. He's like, he could have been, before that, he's like, he could have been prepared for a mouse or a rhinoceros, right? But he wasn't prepared for nothing.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, nothing happening sometimes is the scariest.
Oh, I didn't say
thing.
that, but I loved the narrator voice throughout this.
Well, I didn't have your book.
I thought it was so funny.
Just the voicing.
No, the writing.
Yeah.
Like the fact that the narrator is the one telling the story,
right? With sarcasm,
and he gives you these little pieces of like,
sure.
And if there's a better compliment, then tell me, because I'll put it in here.
Yeah.
He definitely has a lot of times narrators. There's no personality. It's just this one definitely has
the narrator
in
in the book has a personality.
The last two narrators have had personality. Ryan Gosling and The Big Short.
Oh yeah, that was a personality.
Dude, I loved that movie.
You know who narrated his own book and had no personality? J.D. Vance.
Here we go. Here we go.
How about this? Just another awesome sentence. This is talking about Fezziwig. He rubbed his hands, adjusted his capacious waistcoat, laughed all over himself from his shoes to his organ of benevolence, and called out in a comfortable, oily, rich, fat, jovial voice, "Yo ho there, Ebenezer, Dick." It's just like, I want to write like this. It's so good.
You need to move with me to this small, remote village where we all rely on each other.
Let's do it.
Brett and I get together on Fridays and write. You should join us.
That's what I heard.
Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. Jacob Marley. This is Marley's ghost haunting words to Scrooge, reminding him of the moral duties he neglected in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And Scrooge is listening to this like everything Marley... He was trying to convince Marley that he lived a good life so that he could feel good about his own life.
Yep. And he's saying, I neglected to realize that I'm a human and I live in this human world, and my responsibility is to other humans, not just to myself.
More quotes?
Yeah. Tiny Tim.
Good.
He told me coming home that he hoped people saw him in the church because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant to them to remember upon Christmas Day who made the lame beggars walk and the blind men see. I thought that was great.
There's your nod. Say it without saying it. Yeah.
Tiny Tim knew what was up.
Sure did.
You've mentioned a couple times that when he was joyful, he was almost like went back to when he was a schoolboy. I think there's something there. This is one of the quotes that I wrote down. "I'm as light as a feather. I'm as happy as an angel. I'm as merry as a schoolboy." There's definitely something that the last time he actually felt real joy was back then.
Yeah.
So he almost had to
He
go
has
back
to go
then.
all the way back there to
Yep.
feel that joy.
Yeah, at the end of the book, they talk about how often he's laughing and how uncomfortable it is for people to hear because he's literally laughing so often.
Yeah, which is another very sad point of view when you're watching him at the party with this girl that he falls in love with. Like, still, the most
So
joy
sad.
he felt was back when he was a schoolboy.
Yep.
He something did not click for him.
I'll give you two on this. Two quotes on this. "There is nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humor." So that was one. And then the second one was at the end when you're talking about how he looked so irresistibly pleasant in a word that 3 or 4 good-humored fellows said, "Good morning, sir. A Merry Christmas to you," right? So he was irresistibly pleasant, right? And I think about the times when the three of us, but especially me and Remington, just can't stop laughing, and it's just contagious, you know. And I love that. I think it happened once on this podcast where we just almost got there.
That was an early episode. Yeah, that was funny.
It might have been Pirates. Was it Pirates?
I think it was Pirates where we almost lost it.
You know what? I think Four Christmases is going to be a Pirates-esque episode. We need a great drink for Four Christmases.
Okay.
Yeah, what made
work
you
on that.
think
Ooh.
needs to be a shifted question for Christmas?
But that's what we had to do for Pirates too.
Yeah.
And
the funny thing is, we all got done with that one. I was like, we got through it. That was horrible. Ended up being like one of everybody's favorite
You guys
episodes.
thought that. I enjoyed it. You just got to realize that an episode about a movie that nobody likes doesn't matter because it's us talking about it.
Yep.
That's what matters.
Yep.
Also, I'm going to highly request that I want to have the best eggnog of my entire life one of the next 4 weeks.
Bull.
All right.
I've always wanted to get into eggnog, but never.
We could do some really fun Christmas drinks, though.
I think so. Yeah. We can do some
excited.
fun Christmas. things.
Hidden Gems kind of different for a book. I don't know if this is the book
I've
for
got
a lot
some.
of Hidden Gems. You got some? Okay, rock and roll.
Did you guys have hidden gems?
Sure.
Curtains around your bed. What a great idea that we've lost. Think about it. So I slept down. in this. It's like a garage that was converted into essentially a basement, and it was just dark, like as dark as possible. And you can do like blackout curtains and stuff like that. But why not just like have the curtains be around your bed and just be completely
specifically
dark?
for lighting?
Yeah,
is why you would do
there
it.
could be other reasons.
Speaking of which, my kids listen to this
I
podcast.
I got
in the
lots
background.
of kids.
It blocks vision. It doesn't block sound.
Yeah, but you get the warning. You get the warning of the door opening, and there's no vision.
We've talked about our kids listening to this while we think they're tuned out and we're just listening.
Yeah.
So we talked about sleeping naked a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to this and I'm laughing like I always do when I listen to this. And I hear this little voice from the back go, "Dad, you sleep naked?"
I'm a little embarrassed at how much I laugh at us while I'm listening to these episodes.
Yeah.
Is there a scene in Monty Python that has to do with the curtains around the bed? Am I misremembering?
I don't know. I can't remember
I
specifically.
know what you're talking about. I don't know what
Oh man,
happens.
it's
though.
hilarious. Marcus, what other hidden
You said
gems?
you had a hidden gem?
I said I would come up with something.
Oh, the fundraising guys. Just incredible salesmanship. I mean, they just keep going after and assuming
Do not
the
take
sales.
no for
and,
an answer.
we're all sales guys. I thought that was great. I said the narrator voice. Cratchit says that the pudding is his wife's greatest achievement since marrying him. And that's exactly
That's something what
that
you
I
would say.
100%. And then, guys, the word odious was dropped.
Odious. What
Odious.
episode was that?
Huh?
What episode was Odious? Was that
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
Yes, Odious.
Because it was in they used it like 3 times
In the back
summary.
cover. Yeah.
In the summary that you picked.
Well, that's not what made it famous. What made it famous was you
was somebody
using
said,
the word odious. And then us
I said
asking-
something. I said something about it, and then I was like, "Yeah, I know what odious means." And then Remington goes, "What does odious mean?" And I was like, "I don't know what odious means."
I don't know. No, it was the way you said it. It was like, I don't know.
He also used the word demurely, and I think demure is like a big thing on TikTok or whatever right now. So.
demure.
Yeah, demure.
What does that mean?
I don't actually know. I'm just saying he
It
used
is-
the word demurely in this book from 1800, and I'm pretty sure. Am I crazy that like demure is like a thing on TikTok and stuff
Well,
right now?
don't know.
Tis
I'm
the
not a
season.
Are we
TikTok
just
husband.
that
Tis the
old?
season,
Okay,
TikTok.
fair
Tis the
enough.
season.
We're not old. We're just not on TikTok.
Rating time 1 to 9. What you got? Who's ready? I can tell Rem wants to go last because he's worried about his rating being off the others.
You could not be.
I think
more
I'm giving
wrong.
this. I'm gonna give this a 9.
What?
Yeah.
Hold up. You can't say the words "my only qualm" and give something a perfect rating.
Oh,
Sure, I can.
I see what you're saying. Maybe. Perfect's perfect.
I'm giving it a 9, and here's why. I think this is one of like, A, it's incredibly well written, so I love that. B, it's had such an impact on society over time that it's literally it's cultural at this point. And
It was cultural at that point.
and I can see why. And I just think giving it anything less than a 9 is a little disrespectful.
Shut up. Shut up. What's yours, Brett?
I was gonna give it an 8, and I'm still gonna give it an 8. But it's a strong 8.
8.7. I think I struggle with it. I feel like if you're going to go all the way, you gotta put that cherry on top with the reason for the season. That's my
That's
big,
fair.
because I think
It's a fair
I
criticism.
think we as Christians do this where we're like, well, I think everyone assumes, everyone knows what I believe. Everyone knows, like, I think sometimes you got to just say what you believe.
It's a fair criticism.
But again, it was
It was
fantastic.
allegorical.
It was allegorical.
That's gonna be my new catchphrase. Anytime something doesn't go exactly as planned, even if it doesn't make sense to you, it was allegorical.
Well, it was allegorical.
Was it Joey and Ross? Ross goes quotation marks. Joey goes, "I'm gonna stop you there. I don't know what this means."
All right, we are officially in the Christmas season. We got 4 Christmases, Die Hard, and It's a Wonderful Life, the first 9-point movie. of the season for Brett. I don't actually. You know what? Die Hard very well could be. I don't know.
No way.
I don't know.
Die Hard's not
Get
good.
out of here.
You know,
Die Hard's great.
Yeah,
one
but it's not a 9.
one man's 7 is another man's 9.
I mean,
Yeah,
for what
clearly.
it is, we'll see.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Merry Christmas season. I believe as you listen to this, you are getting ready to eat
turkey.
some turkey. Some
No, this
Thanksgiving.
is December 4th.
Oh, so you just ate
You're not going to eat turkey on December 4th? What is there a
Leftovers.
rule
leftovers.
against
Yeah,
this?
sorry,
Leftovers.
turkey
I
sandwiches.
cooked 2 turkeys.
Who wants to tell the audience the fun fact about me and turkey?
That you're allergic?
I'm allergic to turkey, yes. Luckily, you are not allergic to this podcast. So-